Welcome to my YouTube channel, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Let's start with the topic of the last great king, Shah Faisal, the Falcon King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, the only king in the Muslim world whose single order brought the superpower America to its knees, and who had antagonized the entire world for the independence of Palestine. But as soon as King Faisal became the Muslim world's foremost leader, he was shot and martyred by his own nephew, a prince from the Saudi dynasty. But where did the Saudi dynasty derive so much power? To find out, we must go back much further to Muhammad bin Saud. 1400 years ago, the Prophet, peace be upon him, conquered this entire region of Arabia in his lifetime. But as soon as the Prophet, peace be upon him, departed this world, many Arab tribes declared rebellion against the first caliph, Abu Bakr. May Allah be pleased with him. Furthermore, some even falsely claimed to be prophets. The most prominent of these false prophets was Muslim Kajab Rasul. So, to reconquer Arabia, the first caliph, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, sent his best general Khalid bin Walid against these rebellious tribes. Khalid bin Walid swiftly reconquered the entire region. Finally, he faced the greatest false prophet in history, Musaylama Kajab, the Battle of Yamama. In this battle, Khalid bin Walid defeated Musaylama Kajab and his tribe, the Banu Hanifa, so effectively that the Banu Hanifa could not regain their footing for the next 1,000 years. However, after 1,000 years, a new king emerged from Musaylama's tribe, the Banu Hanifa. The first king of the Saudi dynasty was Muhammad bin Saud. When Saud became king, the Ottoman Caliphate was the world's most powerful power, with most of the Ottoman kings following Sufism. During the Ottoman period, Mecca was so rife that 4 different imams stood in the Grand Mosque to lead the same prayers daily: Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, and Hanbali. None of them followed the other imams. Seeing all this, one Arab scholar was displeased with this system, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. However, as soon as he began to speak out against this, the people expelled him from his own city. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab possessed knowledge, but he needed power to spread his ideas to a wider audience. This power came to him when he entered into a friendship with the world's first Saudi king. After this, the Saudi and Wahhabi families together established a strong government in the Arabian region of Najrat. While the Saudi dynasty had now established a strong government, it was still no match for the Ottoman Caliphate. The Ottoman Caliphate was still the most powerful power among Muslims. But 200 years later, the Ottoman Empire was breathing its last. World War I brought the British Empire and the Ottoman Caliphate face to face once again. The British Empire knew full well that they could not topple the Ottoman Caliphate as long as they had the support of the Arabs. Of course, the British Empire tried its best to somehow incite the Arabs to revolt against the Ottoman Empire. But this was no easy task. The British Empire needed a powerful Arab leader for this task. And after much searching, the British finally found this leader, Sharif Hussein of Mecca, who was no ordinary man but belonged to the family of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and was himself a great scholar. The British Empire made a promise to Sharif Hussein and the Arab people that if they won this war against the Ottoman Empire, they would not only eliminate the Caliphate from the world, but would also seize it from the Turks and restore the Arabs as caliphs of Muslims. Hearing this, the Arabs were overjoyed. They revolted against the Ottoman Empire, allied with the British Empire. Ultimately, because of this Arab rebellion, the Ottoman Caliphate, which once spanned such a vast area, was now reduced to a mere handful. The British mission was complete, meaning the British Empire should have handed over the Caliphate to Sharif Hussein. However, the British Empire refused, imposing a dangerous condition on Sharif Hussein. "We will make you Caliph of Muslims, but you must hand over Palestine to the Jews." Sharif Hussein rejected the British offer to sell Palestine. The British Empire was furious that this puppet of theirs had the audacity to defy them. However, Sharif Hussein refused to hand over Palestine to the Jews. Seeing this, the British Empire withdrew all its support from Sharif Hussein. This created a strange situation where the Arab world lacked a prominent leader. Seeing all this, a young Arab leader, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, took advantage of this opportunity. King Abdulaziz of the Saud dynasty was the complete opposite of Sharif Hussein. He didn't care if the caliphate ended, so be it. If Palestine went to the Jews, so be it. He only wanted to become the king of Arabia, and the British needed a similarly selfish Muslim leader, one who cared only for himself and cared nothing for other Muslims. Therefore, after withdrawing their support from Sharif Hussein, the British fully supported Abdul Aziz. Abdul Aziz, along with his army, swiftly departed from Riyadh to conquer Mecca and Medina. Ultimately, with British support, Abdul Aziz easily conquered the entire Hijaz. And seeing Abdul Aziz's strength, all the Meccan scholars pledged allegiance to him in front of the Kaaba. After conquering Mecca and Medina, Abdul Aziz's rule expanded to encompass the entire region. Thus, a new kingdom was created, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Music, and Abdul Aziz became its first king. King Abdul Aziz first divided Saudi Arabia into two major regions, Najaf, which housed the Saudi capital, Riyadh, and appointed his eldest son, Saud bin Abdul Aziz, as its governor. The second region, Hijaz, was home to Islam's holiest sites, Mecca and Medina, and the king appointed his second son, Prince Faisal, rich Saudia. As soon as Saudi Arabia became a state, Arabia's first oil well was discovered in Bahrain, a country very close to Saudi Arabia. Middle Eastern oil. Seeing this, Abdul Aziz, along with his British friends, began searching for oil in Saudi Arabia. But even after searching for the next 6 years, they failed to find a single trace of oil. This same British scientist later wrote in his book that one day, a poor man from the Arabian desert came to him and led him by the hand to Dammam, a region in Saudi Arabia, telling him to look for it there. Whatever you seek, you will find it there. Thus, the world's largest oil well was discovered in Saudi Arabia, the world's largest supplier of oil. Now, as soon as oil was discovered in Saudi Arabia, Abdul Aziz's luck was so good that just 1 year later, the world's biggest war broke out, World War II. Because of this, the entire world was in dire need of oil. Seeing this, King Abdul Aziz began selling Saudi oil to the entire world. This caused Saudi Arabia's economy to grow 2,000 times. Abdul Aziz, from a poor king, now became the world's most powerful king. In this war, World War II, Abdul Aziz stood firmly with America against Hitler of Germany. But as soon as World War II ended, Abdul Aziz's British friends created a new country in the world, Israel. As Israel's leader declared Israel's independence by God. Just 1 day later, almost many Arab countries joined together and attacked Israel. Now, when all the Arabs were fighting against Israel, Abdul Aziz, the world's greatest Arab king, sat quietly. Abdul Aziz had a lot of money and a large army, but he didn't take any steps to save Palestine. Only 800 Saudi volunteers went and fought against Israel. But in the entire Saudi dynasty, only one person spoke out for Palestine. Abdul Aziz's son, Prince Faisal, stood up at the UN and declared that they did not recognize Israel. Now Israel was liberated. But just a few years later, King Abdul Aziz was breathing his last. Before dying, Abdul Aziz told his friends that he wished Faisal, not Saud, had succeeded him as king of Saudi Arabia. He also said that he wished he had 3 more sons like Faisal. Yet in his final moments, Abdul Aziz called Faisal to him and made him swear 7 times to remain loyal to his brother Saud. After Abdul Aziz's death, his eldest son, King Saud, became king of Saudi Arabia. But why? Why did Abdul Aziz want Faisal to succeed Saud as king? Because he knew that his eldest son, Saud, was a very debauched man. Saud had 4 wives and over 100 women in his harem, and a total of 115 children. His entire family lived in 24 luxury palaces, and everyone knew about Saud's habit of drinking alcohol. As soon as Saud became king, he started squandering Saudi Arabia's entire treasury on his family. Saud announced that from today onwards, every prince would be given crores of rupees from the treasury. And not only that, he ordered Saudi Arabia to borrow money and build $1 billion palaces for all the royal princes. This caused Saudi Arabia's debt to double, but triple. Now, while Saudi Arabia was squandering all of Saudi Arabia's money on his debauchery, there was only one person in his family who repeatedly stopped him: his brother, King Faisal. But Saud ignored King Faisal's advice because he knew that no matter how much debt they took, it didn't matter. But this was a grave misconception. Soon, Saudi Arabia's pride would be shattered. Until now, oil was concentrated only in Saudi Arabia and a few other countries. But gradually, oil began to be discovered in other parts of the world, leading to a rapid increase in global oil supply. Now, as oil supply increased significantly worldwide, the price of oil began to fall, and Saudi Arabia's coffers began to drain. Now, Saud was trapped, having taken on significant debts and lacking the funds to repay them. Despite this, Saud continued to live a life of debauchery. Seeing this, his brother Faisal repeatedly warned him that his debauchery would destroy the country. However, Saud refused to listen. Finally, in a fit of rage, Faisal resigned as prime minister and left Saudi Arabia. After Faisal's departure, Saudi Arabia's situation worsened, and within just 2 years, Saudi Arabia was on the verge of bankruptcy for the first time in history. Seeing this, everyone realized that only one man could save Saudi Arabia from ruin: Prince Faisal. Seeing this, the Saudi family and the Wahhabi clan joined forces and pleaded with Faisal, pleading with him to remove his brother Saud and become king of Saudi Arabia himself. Otherwise, the country would be destroyed. Only he could help them. But Faisal said, "No, I can't do that." He remembered the day he had sworn to his father, Abdulaziz, to remain loyal to Saud. So Faisal said, "No, the king will remain Saudi. I will try to save Saudi Arabia by becoming prime minister under him." Saud accepted Faisal's offer and transferred all power to Prime Minister Faisal. Upon his arrival, Faisal first put an end to the prince's extravagances. He stopped the millions of rupees they were given. He confiscated their luxury palaces and established government offices there. Most importantly, Faisal abolished slavery in Saudi Arabia for the first time in history. King Faisal freed each slave owner by paying them $2,000 from his treasury. Thus, thousands of slaves were freed in a single day. To revive Saudi Arabia's economy, King Faisal also took a loan from a powerful man who was the richest man in Saudi Arabia at the time. His name was Mohammed bin Laden. Faisal invited Islamic scholars from around the world to Saudi Arabia so that they could teach Islam to the children of Saudi Arabia's elite families. By the way, the son of Saudi Arabia's richest man, Mohammed bin Laden, also studied in these Islamic schools. These remarkable achievements by Usama bin Laden, Samai Faisal, began to strengthen Saudi Arabia again. However, the entire world knew that Saud was king only in name, and all the power actually rested with Faisal. During all this, King Saud was comfortably settled in America. But after a year, he returned to Saudi Arabia and went to perform Umrah. During the Umrah, he realized that people no longer accorded him the respect a king deserves. He realized that people no longer considered him a king. From this point on, Saud gradually began to hate his brother Faisal. And not only this, his debauched sons began inciting him against Faisal. Because Faisal had put an end to the debauchery of all these princes as soon as he came to power. So Saud and his sons began conspiring to remove Faisal. They began paying people to turn against Faisal, a fact Faisal was well aware of. But Faisal took no action against the king. The real issue arose when Saud sent a letter to Faisal which read, "Faisal, stay within your limits and remember that I am the king. I order you to appoint my 2 sons as the top ministers of Saudi Arabia. Otherwise, I will send my royal army and arrest you." As soon as Faisal read this letter from the king, he gave it to his brother, who went straight to the king and tore it up in his face. Seeing this insult, the king became furious and immediately sent his royal army to Faisal's palace to arrest him. The king's royal army surrounded Faisal's palace from all sides. But the funny thing is that Faisal wielded so much power and influence that as soon as he left his palace, the king's army began to harass him. Seeing Faisal, they mistakenly saluted him, causing Faisal to laugh at them. But the guards remained standing to arrest Faisal. It is even said that the king even tried to kill Faisal. Seeing all this, Faisal finally broke his oath to his father and declared that enough was enough. Saud had crossed all limits. Saud now had only a few royal guards, but the entire Saudi Arabian army considered Faisal their leader. So the first thing Faisal did was order the removal of all the women and children from all the palaces, because now the decision would be made by the sword. With a single signal from Faisal, the entire Saudi army rapidly advanced towards the king's palace, surrounding it from all sides. Now Faisal and Saud were locked in a standoff. However, Faisal's army was far superior to the king's. Therefore, the king retreated with his army. The situation had deteriorated so much that the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Wahhabi dynasty, arrived from Mecca to the capital to decide the fate of the two brothers, Faisal and Saud. Saud was astonished to see that his own family and all the scholars of Saudi Arabia, except the king, stood with Faisal. But why? Why did everyone stand with Faisal except the king? There are two major reasons for this. First, Faisal was a fierce and powerful leader. But there was another more important reason. 200 years before all this, two of Arabia's most prominent families, the Saud and Wahhabi clans, had come together to form the first Saudi state. To this day, these two families were the most powerful in Saudi Arabia. Faisal was the only person to be crowned a prince from both. His father, Abdulaziz Saud, was from the family of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, and his mother, Taraf, was from the family of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Therefore, both families joined forces to support Prince Faisal against King Saud. Finally, Saud abdicated, and Prince Faisal became the new king of Saudi Arabia, the king of the desert warrior. Upon becoming king, Faisal delivered his first speech declaring, "People, consider me not your king, but your friend and servant, because I am not your king, but the only king of this universe. And this throne of mine is not a throne. The throne belongs only to Allah." Faisal was crowned king with the support of Saudi Arabia's scholars. However, upon becoming king, he took certain actions that turned the scholars against him. As soon as Faisal became king, he opened girls' schools, universities, and even Saudi Arabia's first TV channel, which had both male and female anchors. But Saudi Arabia's scholars couldn't tolerate this. One day, a university professor wrote an article in a Saudi newspaper that simply stated that the earth always revolves around the sun, not the sun around the earth. This article spread throughout Saudi Arabia. But when Sheikh bin Baz, Saudi Arabia's Grand Mufti, learned of this, he was shocked to discover it was a complete lie. He then wrote an article in the newspaper himself, claiming that the earth does not revolve around the sun, but the sun revolves around the earth. The earth is a resident sun. Sheikh bin Baz's article spread not only in Saudi Arabia, but throughout the world. Consequently, people around Saudi Arabia and its scholars began to laugh at Saudi Arabia and its scholars, and King Faisal himself was ridiculed. As soon as Faisal learned of this, he ordered that all newspapers containing this news be collected and burned. This further galvanized Saudi scholars to oppose Faisal. By the way, 20 years later, a Saudi prince went to space for the first time, witnessed the world revolve with his own eyes, and upon returning, he reported this to Mufti Azam, after which Sheikh bin Baz admitted his mistake and apologized. In short, the Saudi scholars of that time were so strict that they even declared vanilla ice cream as haram. But the conflict between Saudi scholars and Faisal began when Faisal launched Saudi Arabia's first TV channel. Of course, Saudi scholars considered television to be haram, so they began protesting against it everywhere. A prince even attacked Faisal's TV station and opened fire on police officers. During this firing, a police officer shot the prince of the Saudi family to save himself, and he died. This was a very dangerous move. The prince's father went straight to his brother, King Faisal, and asked him to hand over the policeman so he could behead him. But Faisal said no. The policeman was simply doing his duty. Your son made the mistake. And as long as I am king of Saudi Arabia, anyone who breaks the law, whether a prince or a common man, will be punished. This means that Faisal had now taken on the Saudi family, the Saud dynasty, to protect a common policeman. Remember this prince's death, because it was because of his death that King Faisal was martyred. All this was happening within Saudi Arabia. But even outside Saudi Arabia, Faisal gradually became an international leader. Welcome to the dignified Middle Eastern ruler. Because shortly after Faisal became king, a major war broke out, Pakistan versus India. Why the Indians are so inclined to precipitate this war? Faisal fully supported Pakistan and began sending cheap oil to support the Pakistani army, bringing Pakistan and Saudi Arabia closer to each other. Furthermore, after the war between Pakistan and India, another war also broke out, the war between Israel and the Arabs. The Arab states went to war with Israel. Faisal's father, Abdulaziz, had not helped the Palestinians in the first war with Israel. However, now that Faisal was king of Saudi Arabia, he supported Palestine and the Arabs with his 20,000-strong army. Despite Faisal's best efforts, the Arabs lost the war to Israel, and they lost so badly that Israel's size tripled after this war. It is said that after this crushing defeat, Faisal was so heartbroken that no one ever saw him smile. Faisal was constantly preoccupied with the idea of how to take revenge on Israel. Faisal used his treasury to rebuild all the Muslim countries Israel had devastated in this war. From there, Faisal began purchasing fighter jets, tanks, and warships from around the world. This meant that by strengthening the Saudi army, Faisal could take revenge on Israel. Just as Faisal was planning his revenge, a sudden incident occurred that shook the entire world. One day, a Christian man set fire to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site for Muslims in Jerusalem. This sparked a global uprising against Israel. This Christian man set fire to Salahuddin Ayyubi's pulpit inside the Masjid-i-Aqsa. This was the very pulpit that Salahuddin Ayyubi had personally placed there 800 years ago. Now this pulpit had burned to ashes. Gradually, the fire grew so large that a portion of the Al-Aqsa Mosque's roof collapsed. After all this, when the Christian was asked why he did this, he replied that he believed Jesus Christ would return to the world only when the Al-Aqsa Mosque was destroyed. But now, consider the Israeli government's actions. Even after the Al-Aqsa Mosque was set on fire, the Israeli court did not punish this man, declaring him a lunatic, not a terrorist. But if a Muslim had done all this, the entire world would have condemned him as a terrorist. Islam does not deserve to call itself a religion of peace. Islam is not a religion of peace, meaning, our terrorist is a terrorist and your terrorist is a lunatic. Now, when this man received no punishment, Muslims worldwide began protesting against Israel. At that time, they were looking to only one leader, King Faisal of Saudi Arabia. Seeing all this, Faisal ordered Muslim leaders from around the world to gather. And at this conference, the formation of an Islamic organization called the OIC was announced, making Faisal the most prominent leader in the Muslim world. Faisal now had the opportunity to unite Muslims worldwide against Israel. Faisal, along with Muslim leaders, began planning an attack on Israel during the oil embargo. Suddenly in 1973, on Yom Kippur, the biggest Jewish festival, Arab forces launched a surprise attack on Israel. Arab forces entered Israel from all sides and seized all these territories from Israel. Israel was completely unprepared for this war. Therefore, the Israeli forces gradually retreated under Muslim pressure. Seeing this, King Faisal sent a message to the Muslim army. Today, my sons, you have made us proud, but now there is no stopping. Keep moving forward against Israel. It seemed as if the Muslims would crush Israel within a few days. But the very thing Faisal feared came to Israel's aid, superpower America. The United States is ruled by Israel. Fearing the Arab army, Israel's prime minister begged for help from the United States and requested that the U.S. immediately send $1 billion. To this, the U.S. replied, "Not $1 billion, take this $1 billion and go teach these Arabs a lesson." The U.S. also sent fighter jets, tanks, and machine guns to Israel. With this aid, Israel began to push back the Arab forces. King Faisal, the Muslim leader, became aware of all this. He was sitting in his office when he was informed of America's misdeed. Faisal was so enraged by America's actions that he immediately picked up his phone and demanded that the oil minister be brought before him. As soon as the oil minister arrived, it was 8 p.m. and their meeting began. But the oil minister told Faisal that all Saudi TV channels close at 9 p.m., so if you have a decision to make, you must do it right now. Faisal thought for a moment and said, "Right. I, King of Saudi Arabia, Faisal bin Abdulaziz, order that all oil shipments to America be stopped. And from now on, America will not face even a single threat of Arab oil." Everyone in Arabia who had oil agreed to Faisal's order and stopped sending it to America. And America was finished. Bye-bye. Gone. Because America bought 80% of its oil from Arab countries. This was such a huge blow to America that its economy had never collapsed so rapidly since World War II. Yet, America remained firm on its friend Israel, and with American help, Israel won this war against the Arabs. Music. After which, of course, America told Faisal that the war was over. So now lift this oil embargo. But Faisal was so angry that he said no. I won't sell you oil as long as you support Israel." And from there, Faisal demonstrated his true power to America, and indeed to the entire world. He turned Arab oil into a weapon, completely crippling America's economy. People in America didn't even have enough fuel to run their vehicles. "This happens," he said. "Indeed." Petrol stations had signs saying, "Forget oil, remember God." For the first time in a superpower like America, load shedding and blackouts began, and people returned to burning candles and wood. 500,000 people lost their jobs. And most importantly, the year Faisal imposed the embargo on America not only was America's biggest festival, Christmas, not celebrated but on Christmas night, which is always filled with lights, all of America was plunged into darkness. Faisal's power was realized not only by America in the West, but also by Japan in the East. In Japan, it was said that Faisal's embargo was the biggest crisis for Japan after the atomic bomb. Now, America's situation became extremely dire. America's patience reached its limit, and secret meetings began in which the Americans began planning that if Faisal did not lift the embargo, America would attack Faisal's Saudi Arabia with all its might, depose him, and install another prince on the throne. When Faisal learned of this American plan, he sent a clear message to America. "If you attack me, I will set fire to all the oil wells in Arabia, destroying your America." Hearing this, America asked Faisal, "What will happen to you if you do this?" To which Faisal replied, "We have always been poor desert people. We subsisted on camels and dates before, and we will do so again. But you people won't even be able to survive without oil." After which Faisal delivered his famous speech, saying, "O people, I am not the kind of king who will wage war over the telephone while sitting in his office. Rather, when the time for war comes, you will all see me on the front lines. And I know that the West and East are angry with us because of our dangerous decisions. But I don't care about all this. We will go to any lengths to secure Palestine's freedom. Even if the entire Arab world accepts Israel together, I alone will never accept Israel." Music. Muslims around the world have united, and Faisal is their leader. This unity of Muslims was seen shortly thereafter at the largest OIC conference in Lahore, Pakistan. All the major leaders of the Muslim world, including Gaddafi Bhutto, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and Yasir Arfan, attended the conference where, for the first time, the idea of an Islamic atomic bomb was discussed. At this very conference, a very famous photograph was taken of all the major leaders sitting together in a mosque. But the strange thing is that all the leaders in this picture were killed one by one as soon as Faisal returned from the OIC meeting. Faisal's power had grown so much that the U.S. finally surrendered to him. And at Faisal's behest, the U.S. began pressuring Israel to make a deal with the Arabs, after which the U.S., Europe, and Japan all joined forces to beg Faisal for oil. So now that Faisal's demands were met, he lifted the U.S. sanctions. But even after the embargo was lifted, oil prices didn't fall. That's why the Saudi economy began to grow rapidly during Faisal's reign. When Faisal became king, the economy was only $2 billion. But now Faisal had taken it from $2 billion to $50 billion. It's said that property prices in Saudi Arabia doubled every week, and construction was progressing so rapidly that people were ordering cement not in boats, but in helicopters. And this is how the Saudis became the richest people in the world. Now, when Faisal was at the peak of his power, death declared that this speech was the last of his life. What are we waiting for? For the world's pride to awaken. Where is the world's pride? Oh, my brothers, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is calling you. It is crying for your help. What are we afraid of? Death. What could be a more worthy death than this? One who comes fighting in the path of Allah. And I pray to Allah that if I don't liberate Palestine, don't let me live in this world even for a moment. And O Allah, grant me a martyr's death. And shortly after this, while Faisal was sitting in a gathering, a man shot him. People carried King Faisal to the hospital. It is said that Faisal's last words were, "I forgive my murderer." News of Faisal's martyrdom spread like wildfire throughout the world, and people wept everywhere. World leaders flocked to Saudi Arabia for Faisal's funeral, where King Faisal's funeral prayer was offered. Allah! When Faisal was being taken to be buried, people surrounded his car, crying and wailing. And all this was being shown on the same TV channel that Faisal had founded. And the anchor was crying and saying, "Today, the father of the entire Muslim Ummah has died. And thus, King Faisal was buried. Now, the man who had killed Faisal was none other than Faisal's own brother's son. That's why, when he was walking towards King Faisal with a gun, no one stopped him because he was also a prince. And as Faisal approached his nephew to meet him, Faisal's nephew shot him twice in the head, martyring him. After killing King Faisal, when his nephew was asked why he did this, he gave a very stupid and strange answer. The prince said, 10 years ago, one of my brothers attacked the TV station Faisal had built, after which the police fired on my brother and killed him. And I was angry when Faisal, instead of taking revenge for my brother, forgave that policeman. And today, 10 years later, I have avenged that brother by killing Faisal. Now the question is, how did this prince remember his brother after 10 years? And where was he for the past 10 years? This prince had been living a life of debauchery in America for the past 10 years, spending all his money on clubs, drugs, and girlfriends. In fact, he was so debauched that he was even arrested in America for drug use. This means that for 10 years he didn't care about his brother's death. He returned to Saudi Arabia from America shortly before the attack on Faisal. Today, many people around the world believe that Faisal was killed not out of revenge, but because of sanctions imposed on America and Israel. Indeed, America and Israel benefited the most from Faisal's death. Immediately after Faisal's martyrdom, Israel and the Arabs extended a hand of friendship, and all Arab countries gradually began to accept Israel. And after Faisal, no Saudi king has dared to confront America again. Do I like it? Just hours after Faisal's martyrdom, the Saudi family selected its new king, King Khalid bin Abdulaziz. Upon his arrival, he ordered the prince who attacked Faisal be publicly beheaded. But the moment the new king ascended, the most dangerous incident in Muslim history occurred, the attack on the Kaaba. Thanks for watching this video. Be ready for the next video. Like, share, and subscribe my YouTube channel.